All right, welcome back to First Person Radio. I'm going to do another desktop or tabletop exercise here instead of being out in the field. So today we are going to be building a 49:1 impedance transformer. These are excellent for an End Fed Halfwave Antenna, which is the type of antenna I like to use. If you have this transformer and the right length of wire, you can plug it directly into your radio, no tuner required. It does multiband on harmonics, so if you set it up to run on the 40 meter band, it will do 20 as well with no tuning. If you set it up on 80, my experience is that it will be close for 40 and 20. But unless you have it set up in the bottom half of the 80 meter band, I tend to be a little bit high on 40 and 20. But it's pretty close, and I'm sure there's a way to get it set up. This one in particular, there's a guy on Facebook called Steve Ellington who has popularized this design. He didn't invent it. He doesn't claim to invent it, but he certainly has made it popular, and I really like it. So let's get going. What you're going to need, you can make this in a couple different sizes. The Facebook group recommends you use an FT240-41 toroid. That's this size here. It's about 2.5 inches across. And one of them I would say is good for 100 watts. The Facebook group recommends you can stack 3 of them and it'll be good for like 300 watts, which is quite a bit. I've found I don't have any need for anything more than one. This is my high power transformer. I have used the, I believe this is an FT140. It's, maybe 1.5 inches across. These are good for maybe, 50 watts. And then you can even make them, where did I put it? On these tiny little guys. This is a FT63. This kit is sold by K6ARK on Amazon. This is good for 5 watts, and it is so small. I freaking love it. So if you're only running 5, maybe 10 watts, you can get one of these, but I find that a little limiting, so I build the mid-size. The case I'm putting it in, this is just a 18650 battery case, like for e-cigarette batteries, and I find it's just the right size. You can fit your toroid, you can fit your terminal for your BNC, and then your positive and your negative terminals. I use 1/4 bolts with wing nuts for my terminals, and then I have ring terminals on the antenna itself. So let's get started. I'm going to drill the holes in my enclosure first so I can make sure that everything fits. And we're doing this live, so I hope I don't screw anything up. Let me take my trusty, rusty, old drill and put a 3/8 bolt in it, or 3/8 drill bit in it, because that is the size we need for our BNC connector. I have no idea how this video will turn out. This might be very boring to watch somebody do every single step of the process, but the main reason I wanted to do this style of video, first person radio, is because I'm lazy, and I think, I'm just going to drill the hole right there. I think that if I were to have to spend 3 hours doing editing for every video I published, I would not publish any of them. And I think that I need a knife. Pardon. And I think that I have some information that you might find handy. So I'm going to make very low effort, poor quality videos that I hope will nevertheless be educational. So I'm just kind of deburring the edge of this surface here. Just to clean it up a little. All right, so let me make sure my BNC connector fits. All right. So now 1/4 inch for my 1/4-20 bolts. right. All right, so I'm gonna not put it too close to the edge. I wanna be able to have a little bit of space there. All right, and then I'm gonna put one on the bottom and one on the top. I'm gonna make my ground wire, or my ground connection, be the one closest to my BNC connector, so I can remember which one it is, because my radio and the BNC connector is on the ground. So radio is on the ground, and so is my ground wire, same side. Just a little easy way for me to remember it. All right, I'm gonna clean these up again. Get these chunks of plastic out of here. You can buy these kits completely assembled for something like 80 bucks. Or maybe, 120 bucks, or I'm sure someone will sell it for you for 200 bucks. But I like to build them myself, because then I know how they work. I know how to fix them. And I save a little bit of money. So I'm going to have my transformer in the middle, and do my wire windings there. And then I'm going to have 1/4-20 here. Quarter-20 here, and then a BNC here. All right, that looks like that will all fit. Although it's a little tight around the sides here, so I want to make sure that my winding is pretty tight. So I forget how much wire I need, but I'm going to use plenty because I have extra. So I'm going to trim it off. Now, if we go back to our design here, I can pull it back up. Stand by. So I do take some effort to obscure my identity, just because I'm a little paranoid. All right, so you'll see the primary. These are going to your radio, so positive and negative to your radio. And those are wound together nice and tight. And then you have a 100 picofarad capacitor across them. We'll just put that capacitor across the BNC connector. Electrically, it's the same. So you're going to have a section of this wire that's wound together, and then the rest of it is just a single strand you wind like that. There's a whole reason why you wind it in that particular way. I would advise you to check out the Facebook group if you're curious, so I don't have to go into it. So I'm going to take a couple inches here and kind of start the first couple winds, and then you can take a screwdriver like this and then just wind it like this. Oops. And what this does is get good coupling of your primary and your secondary with the first two winds. There's a little shoulder on my screwdriver here, which makes it a little difficult to get this out of here. All right. So I have this wound together, and then I have a big long section left. So I'm going to start winding it per the diagram. So this is going to be my ground. All right. I hope I got enough wire wound. So that's one turn. Every time the wire goes through the middle of the transformer, that counts as one turn. So that's one turn. And now this will be about right. Maybe a little bit long. Now I feed the wire through for the second turn. All right. Oh, wonderful. Oh man, I guessed that almost perfect. It's almost like I've done this before. I'll actually be a little bit short but I think we can make it work. So I'm going to unwind the rest of it. Okay. Yeah, that's a little shorter than I'd like. It's going to be a little difficult to get that to be in good position. I'm going to use the pliers to straighten that out. Hopefully give it a little bit more length, because all guys want a little bit more length, don't we? All right. There we go. I'm not going to straighten this other one out because I don't want to mess with the coating on it. So this is magnet wire, and there is a coating on the outside of it. It's an enamel that is an electrical insulator, and it can be scraped off, and some of them can be burnt off. But burning it off is less reliable than scraping it off, and scraping it off can be done accidentally. So you want to be kind of careful with it, but as a rule, it's pretty durable. So you want to wind these windings as close to the core as possible. You don't want them big and loose, and you want them reasonably centered, but it doesn't have to be exact. So let's see, we want 7 windings. So our primary is 1, 2, and then it goes out here. So it comes in, goes around twice, and then comes back out. And our secondary is going to be those same 2 plus more, so for a total of 14 winds. And that will give us 2 to 14 ratio, or a 1 to 7 ratio. And then 7 squared is 49, and that's how you get the 49 to 1 impedance transformer. Don't really have to worry about the math, just trust me on the counting. So that's 5. And this is 6. And then this is 7. Okay. And now on the 8th wind, I'm just going to go through the middle and go to the opposite side, and then continue winding on the other side. Now, if you look at the way these are winding, they're kind of winding this way. So on this side, it would need to be winding this way. Oh, hold on. No, sorry. It's winding this away. So on this side, it would need to be winding this away, and we are. Right? We are winding in the same direction because of the way that this crosses through the middle. And that counts as a turn, so that's my 8th turn. Right? Now the reason it's wound this slightly weird way is so you can keep your positive output away from your input. And that helps the RF performance slightly. So that's 8, then there's 9, this is going to be 10, 11. There's a lot of planning that went into this design, and I don't know a lot of it. I just know I've used the design and it works. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 2 more windings. Wow, I lucked out on the length of this wire. All right. It's maybe a little bit sloppy, but I think it will work. So we have 1, 2 primary windings, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 secondary windings. Wonderful. All right, now the annoying part. So I said you could burn this enamel off, but it's more reliable to scrape it off. And since these are not all going to be soldered connections, we're actually just going to be clamping them onto a bolt. I'm using a file to scrape the enamel off. And then I'm going to check with a multimeter to make sure that I actually made a good electrical connection. And I'm going to cinch the crap out of these guys. I'm going to clamp them as tight as I can by hand, because I don't think I'm going to strip out a 1/4 bolt. So I'm going to, you can see the kind of yellow color is coming off. And it's nice and silvery underneath. It's totally unoxidized. Yeah, so I've scraped the enamel off, and I may as well get both sides, because I want to make really sure I got a good electrical connection here. All right. All right, so, oh yeah, and my ground has to be 2 separate. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Okay, yeah. It's been a while since I made one of these, so I'm going to cut this in half. And then one of these is going to go to the ground. I really need a wire jumper, don't I? Okay, I shouldn't have done that. Well, I should have left those together and clamped them on the ground terminal, and then run a little jumper from the ground terminal to the BNC, but this will work as well. What I could also do, I could probably also just solder them together right there and then have them go their separate ways. But I'm not going to be that fancy. We'll see. This might not turn out. Life is uncertain. And so are my YouTube videos. Hope y'all like my dumb sense of humor, because it is here to stay. So if you don't, sorry, not sorry. I gotta entertain myself somehow. All right. I think I got a reasonable amount of the coax off there. So I'm just gonna snip this. So let's get these connectors put in place. All right. So I'm going to put my BNC connector in, and I'm going to cinch it down. I have had these connectors come loose over time. So I'm going to cinch this guy down real tight. If they come loose, it's not the end of the world. They're not really soldered on the other side. So you can just, retighten them as long as you're getting a good connection. Having a multimeter to check that is really handy. Hold on. Needed to grab my needle nose. But it's not strictly, well, I suppose if you don't have a multimeter to check you have continuity, then you're really kind of gambling. But if your SWR goes nuts and shows basically infinite, that's probably what's going on. All right, so this little ground lug here, this guy right here, if it'll focus for me, this little guy on the outside is our ground lug that's on our BNC connector. And we're going to be soldering the ground to that. And then this is going to be the positive that we're going to solder. So I need to make sure that that little lug is sticking out somewhere I can get to it. And somewhere that's not interfering. See, that's going to get in the way of where my connector is. There we go. One of my other videos on HF propagation, I did a couple takes. I am not doing a couple takes on this because I'm not making a dozen of these little transformers. I'm just making the one. So I don't really have, I'm going to use the other one to help tighten it because I don't have anything else that'll help me get a better grip. Well, it's tightening into plastic, so it doesn't have to be super tight. There, that should work. All right. Will I be able to fit a washer in there? I hope so. Not that size washer. Okay. Oh, I wonder if these are close enough that I can just tuck the ground lug in between. I bet you I can. Yeah, okay. I like this. All right, I haven't done it this way before, but I think it'll work. Famous last words. So I'm going to have a nut on the opposite side here. So I'm going to stick this in here. All I'm really worried about is having electrical connections where I want them. And if they are put together slightly different, oh yeah, no, that's not going to work. That's not quite close enough. All right, how am I going to do this? Shoot. I need a smaller washer. Because what I was hoping to do is I was hoping to put this washer on the bottom and then clamp the wire between that screw and the washer. That's how I did it on my other one. But the washer is too big. It kind of sticks up around the edges. I bet you with an X-Acto knife I can go in there and cut away those little plastic supports around the edge, and I can make that washer fit. Stand by, I'm going to go do that off camera and just splice the videos together. All right, so I was actually able to more or less rip those little supports out with pliers and then trim them up with the X-Acto knife, and I've got an idea. I'm going to take 2 washers and pinch the ground lug between those 2 washers. I should make a good electrical connection if I cinch it down. I mean, maybe it'll corrode someday, but whatever. These are nickel-plated washers. They're conductive. And then I'm going to pinch the wire between the washer and the bolt here. And that should do nicely. All right. And the last puzzle is going to be how I get my little 100 picofarad capacitor from the center pin to the outside. I might have to just solder it to the end of one of these little ground wires. We'll see. All right. This is going to be rough. Sorry, guys. I thought this would be way easier than it was. Famous last words. Hell, at this rate, this video has never seen the light of day. Man, if I gotta work this hard to make trash videos, just imagine how hard the big boys work. Grand Thumb must be busting his ass. All right, let's see. The funny thing is, the thing I love the most about ham radio is the crazy improvising skills you get. It really really helped me have the courage to muck around with expensive devices and just try it. Within reason. I don't want to break them. Ah, shit. Did I tear the wire or did I just... Okay, I didn't tear the wire. We're in shape. We're in good shape. Within reason, but it let me experiment with things, which really came in handy when I got into night vision, because you need to experiment a little bit with your equipment with night vision. And if I was absolutely terrified to modify anything that wasn't that way from the factory, then it would have made it really difficult to get things the way I wanted them. Ah, geez. Okay. Come on, you little buggers. And you're probably thinking, this guy is an idiot. This is never going to work. Look at how much he's mucking around. But believe it or not, I have a pretty decent track record of being able to make radio contacts when I want to. It's just that whenever someone's watching, it all goes to shit. And I can't tell you why. All right. That looks pretty good. No, I just pushed it out. Okay, yeah, this is another annoying thing is you want to orient the wires so that they're wrapping with the turn of the screw. Otherwise, they will tend to work themselves out. So what I should have done, well, what I really should have done is I really should have left these attached. But I didn't. But the next thing I should have done is I should have wound them both on the same side. Problem is it's a little hard to get them both on the same side at once. And I don't want to stick another washer in there, mainly just because I'm stubborn. All right, longer wire on the outside, because the shorter one is, well, shorter. And I run out of length a lot sooner. Oh, come on. There. Maybe that'll work. Damn it. Okay. I'm going to want to give this one the stink eye the first few times I use it and make sure I have a good SWR meter. All right, well, let's see if I made good electrical connection. So I'm going to use my multimeter set to ohms, electrical resistance, and it'll show more or less 0 if I touch the contacts together. So I should be able to touch one here on the bolt and then touch one on the end. Yeah, there we go, 0. Did I make contact on the other end? I did! Oh, wonderful. So I got connection between the ground wire and here, and the ground wire and here. Wonderful. So now I am going to put in my other quarter 20 bolts for the positive end of my antenna. This is going to be a real bitch to get in there, isn't it? I'm a little worried that this won't sit flat enough now that I've got wires wrapped around it and I've kind of constrained its position. All right, well, I'm going to file a little more on this side because I don't think I got close enough to the transformer when I scraped away the coating. It's going to be by far my longest video so far, and probably not the most useful. I mean, it'll definitely be useful. You want to build one of these, but as far as time to benefit, maybe not there. I'm going to go grab another washer. Be right back. All right, another washer. I hope it fits. Can't get it in the damn hole. Story of my life. All right, there we go. It's not great. It's kind of riding up on the plastic on the edge. I'm going to try and tear it out again. All right. Needle nose. So all I'm doing is I'm just grabbing it, just ripping that sucker out. By the way, when I talk about modifying things, I'm not doing this kind of a modification on like my night vision or anything. It's a little more sophisticated than this, but you know, you shouldn't be afraid to do things like paint your rifle, just because if you screw it up, it might affect the resale value. And I've improvised things like lens covers, like really simple shit like that. I did at one point fix a buddy's scope that had a loose wire as well. It was a red dot. I had to pull it apart, find where the loose wire was in the battery compartment, but it wasn't too bad. All right, much better. All right, so I'm just gonna, well, remember the lesson about wrapping the wire around in a way that when you tighten the screw, when I tighten this way, it's gonna wrap the wire further in instead of trying to push it out. So it'll go down that side. Now we are gonna clamp the crap out of this and hope that I scraped off enough material that it makes a good connection. All right, let's see what we got. Should have a dead short, actually, from positive to negative. But, yeah, and we do. Sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually not, because it's through this transformer. All right, so there we go, almost done. The only thing left is soldering. So what I'm going to do is to make that connection between positive and ground, I'm going to scrape enamel here on this leg, being careful not to scrape too much so that I break it. And I'm just going to solder from that to that with the capacitor. And then, of course, we still have positive wire here that I've scraped enamel off of that needs to go into the center pin. So I'm going to bend this wire into the center pin. Get her in there. All right, so I'm going to solder that joint. Then I'm going to take my 100 picofarad capacitor, which is here. I'm going to put one leg in there with the positive, right like that, and then I'm going to solder the other leg to this side right here. All right. Now for my soldering iron, I actually have a pretty decent soldering station, but in the spirit of improvising things, I'm using my humble butane soldering iron that I've clearly used quite a bit. Has made quite a bit of gear with me, and I love it because it is very portable and off-grid friendly. So you can actually tuck one of these in your bag and plan on using it for field repairs. And then I've got some solder here. Has a little bit of flux in the core. And a sponge, a common kitchen sponge, is great for cleaning the tips on your soldering iron. So as soon as you heat it up, you just wipe the tip off to get any oxidation and schmutz off of there. Melt a little bit more solder, and off you go. I'm going to trim the leads on this capacitor a little. They don't need to be that long. So this capacitor, by the way, is rated for 2 kilovolts, and it is 100 picofarads. You don't really need a 2 kilovolt capacitor. You're only actually getting, well, let's see. Say you're putting 100 watts through this guy. Power is current times voltage. Current is voltage is current times resistance. So you're going to have, I have to write it down. Point is, you probably only need maybe like a 100 volt capacitor or something, but the higher the voltage, like this 2 kilovolt, it's going to have thicker wires on it and have greater current carrying capacity, or at least that's the idea on the Facebook group, and that will be slightly more efficient. But you can do with a little 100 volt capacitor if that's what you have. The important thing is that it's about 100 picofarads. And I do wonder if it would work fine without it. Maybe I'll test that sometime. But it does help you to get a better SWR on some frequencies, or some bands. So I'm just going to get this situated in here. And I'm going to wrap. I almost need tweezers instead of needles. There. There. So I'm going to solder those 2 joints, and I should be done. And my soldering iron should be hot enough. All right, melt a little solder, wipe off your oxidation, melt a little more solder. This tip is pretty grody, but I think we can do some work. So, just going to heat up all 3 of those at once, and then feed some solder in. And having a little solder blob on the tip of the iron helps to conduct the heat onto the things you're trying to warm, because liquids conduct heat better than solids, I guess. Or molten solder, as it wicks around, does a pretty good job of it. Something like that. I'm just bullshitting while I'm working. Just ignore me. Alright. Looks like a decent solder joint, and it gets all 3 of those things soldered together. Now let's try this little leg here. This one might be a little tricky. I think that did it. And let me give it a little extra heat just to be sure. Dang it, this thing is wobbling around way too much. And I apologize for the camera angles, but honestly, guys, it's hard enough for me to make this thing, let alone deal with a camera at the same time. All right. Looks pretty good. Not going to be winning any beauty contests, but that'll do. All right. So the last step, what I usually do, is I would hot glue this toroid inside. Oh, look, I melted the waterproof edge when I was soldering it. Oops. I would hot glue this toroid in place, but considering how compact it is in there, I don't think I really need to. So it should hold it nice and tight. So let's check continuity one last time. I should have continuity between these two terminals. Let me move this back over here. All right. Continuity between here and here. And I do. I should have continuity between the center pin and the other side. I do. And ground. And I do. Okay. So that's it. I just put a couple of wing nuts on the 1/4 bolts. That will be used to tighten in my little ring terminals. And I have a 50-watt antenna tuner, and it took me, what, 45 minutes to put together? And the only specialized things I had to buy is I had to buy the center toroid and the capacitor, and I suppose the magnet wire. That might be a little bit hard to get. I think technically you could wind this with like regular stranded insulated wire. I just don't know how well it would work. I don't see any reason theoretically why you couldn't, but I would not advise it if you can get decent magnet wire, which you can. Also use reasonably thick gauge magnet wire for better efficiency. But that's it. I'm going to do another video showing how to measure the efficiency of these guys. The gist of it is you're going to have to build 2 of them that are identical, and then you can use that to figure out how much power you're losing through them. Don't worry about losing a decibel or 2. Keep in mind that even if you were to have an antenna that doesn't have, or a tuner that has no loss, like if you had plug your antenna directly into your radio, if it's a dipole antenna, you got to hoist it in the air and use coaxial cable to do that. And that's a lot of coaxial cable in the air that also has loss. So you're probably going to be better off with one of these little guys if it's reasonably efficient. Sorry, I trimmed the little extra wire there. And using hardly any coax and feeding it from the ground than you would be with, 30 feet of coax cable going in the air. All right, that's it. I will shut up. That's how you build your little antenna transformer for an End Fed Halfwave, start to finish, in almost one solid take.